Hey everybody, what's going on? Hellmite here, bringing another video from Grab the Lantern today. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about a game that is not actually League of Legends, but still created by Riot. Today I wanted to talk a little bit more about Wild Rift. Now, if you guys haven't been playing it yet, I honestly didn't play it when it first came out. I really didn't consider Wild Rift to be worth my time. Not that I had a phone that could run it, but I considered it to be just a mobile port of League of Legends. Everything was going to be the same, and so why would I be interested at all in what was going on in Wild Rift, right? Presumably it was the same thing that I was already playing. But recently, I actually came into the possession of a better phone and decided I was going to give Wild Rift a try, and I was frankly blown away by some of the things that Wild Rift is doing that I think just massively improve the overall experience of the game. So today's video, I wanted to talk a little bit about the 3 lessons that I think League of Legends can learn from Wild Rift, and some of the things that League of Legends may consider doing itself that Wild Rift started doing, as opposed to Wild Rift sort of aping what League of Legends does. The first of these is how Wild Rift makes a lot of things a little bit more casual in a good way, and specifically with regards to setting up the player so that the only thing they have to worry about is champion-on-champion interactions. Let me go ahead and explain what I mean here. So in League of Legends, there's a lot to worry about beyond just which champion you're picking, right? You're in champion select, you're seeing what the enemy team has got, you have to decide what you are going to play. Maybe you're picking the same thing every game, maybe you're trying to flex it around based on what you think a good counter pick is. But either way, that's a big decision. But after that, you're not done. You need to set up a rune page. You need to choose which summoner spells you're going to use, and once you get in-game, you have to decide on a build path, right? Not only which items you're buying, but in what order to buy them, and what components you're going to start with, and the list goes on. And this is a lot of decision-making. This is one of the things that really trips up new players, because they sort of don't understand the importance of all of these systems, and a lot of newer players especially try to ignore it, right? They try to say, I don't have to worry about items, or I don't need to worry about summoner spells, I'm just going to take the defaults that they give me, or even rune pages, right? Sticking with the default rune pages that Riot gives you, as opposed to actually playing around with them and trying to figure out what the correct choices are, because there are sort of quote-unquote correct choices, and that's something that's really complicated, especially for newer players. And even if you want to play casually, it's one of those things that's really frustrating, that you basically always have to consider it, and you always have to be evaluating what your rune pages look like. And then if you go into the game with the wrong rune pages because you weren't paying attention to this game, you find yourself at a tremendous disadvantage to your opponent, all that kind of thing. Wild Rift has a really ingenious way of dealing with this, specifically for more casual games, which I think is a great way of doing it, which is that it comes with what are called loadouts, which basically, when you pick your champion, you instead have the choice of loadouts, sort of like the item build system that we have in League of Legends, but it comes with your summoner spells and your runes as well, on top of the item order that you're going to build it in. And this is something that you adjust pre-game. This is something that you say, these are the 6 items that I want to build this game, these are the 2 summoner spells I want, and this is generally the setup that I'm going to be looking at going into this game. And the important thing as well is this is supported once you get in-game, because when you're on the fountain, when you have the ability to buy items, the next item in the build path that you have set pre-game just appears for you below the shop. You don't even have to open the shop to purchase the item. All you have to do is just get on the fountain, and it will recommend for you, hey, here's the next thing you're building. If it's a component, right, if that's all you can afford, it will give you a free component. If it's the full item, it will tell you, hey, finish this item. And as you purchase items, if you still have more gold, it will try to get you as far down your build path as you possibly can. And this means that players aren't actually having to go into the item shop and be overwhelmed with the number of choices that they're being confronted with and all of the individual options and trying to decide which component is worth it, right? Because the item system right now, even the recommendations, will just tell you which major item to go for, not necessarily components. You might see someone who wants to build a Gale Force who starts with the pickaxe because they don't know any better. And Wild Rift has a really, I think, good way of setting it so that generally, you're going to be building the right things at the right time. You're not worrying about your runes. You're not worrying about your summoner spells. The game kind of gives you all of this out off the bat. And that, I think, is a really good way to help newer players just learn the base game, right? They're not worried about any of this extraneous setup. They can just go in and play the game. Now, Wild Rift still lets you open the shop and buy whichever items you want. So if you decide, hey, this loadout kind of sucks, I don't want that item, or they're all AD, so I don't want to build this Spirit Visage, for example, you don't have to do that, right? The game won't make you plow down your same build path, and it allows you to still swap out summoner spells and runes pre-game as you see fit. But it's one of the things that I think really does a good job of making the new player experience significantly more friendly, and is one of the things that I think makes the game significantly more friendly to more casual players. And I can see this kind of setup being used in League of Legends either for sort of normal blind pick games, which are the most common and the most sort of casual game mode, but also being able to see this being used in beginner games, right? Until you hit level 20, let's say, these features are all enabled for you, and then later on, Riot will take that away from you, right, and make you say, okay, you actually need to think about the items you built. But in general, I'm a big fan of this system. The second lesson that that League of Legends can learn from Wild Rift is the new player experience. It was shocking to me to see the number of things that Wild Rift did to make new players feel comfortable in this game and to make them want to continue playing this game. Wild Rift practically falls over itself, giving you free champions and giving you free content, even cosmetic content like skins. Wild Rift just kind of hands you and says, hey, go ahead and pick. And League of Legends does this to a certain extent, but Wild Rift, I think, does a better job by also giving you champion selection capsules. Right? Not just saying, here's a champion shard for Ezreal, he's a good beginner champion, but maybe you don't like Ezreal. Wild Rift specifically says, hey, I'm going to give you your choice of, let's say, 20 or so champions. Which one do you prefer? And that's such a really, really big thing for me, because then it allows the player to feel a little bit better about their actual choices, right? They're looking at this and saying, oh, I get to choose, and even if necessarily this champion I'm not going to vibe with, I'm going to pick them based off their aesthetic, what they look like, maybe not necessarily how they play. And I think that's a more important thing for players, to have this feeling of being able to choose their experience and being able to choose which characters they want to play, as opposed to being told by Riot, these are the free week characters that you have to play, and you know, once you hit a certain level, you're going to be on the free week rotation with everyone else, and you basically have no starting roster of your own. You have to buy it all. This game basically says, build your starting roster the way you want it to. Obviously, resource gains fall off over time, so you eventually sort of have to start playing the game and grinding out champions like everybody else. But off the bat, the ability to establish this sort of base of champions that you wanted, plus maybe a couple of skins alongside — I think I have a couple skins for free in Wild Rift — is such a tremendous advantage over what League of Legends does. The other thing Wild Rift does is has significantly more tutorials for sort of basic game functions, which is something that I think League of Legends could honestly benefit from, is having a more robust tutorial system. Yes, I know the whole mantra of Riot is that tutorials aren't fun and no one wants to play them, and you don't want to force the player to sit through hours and hours of tutorials over time. But I think that having the tutorials available is a really cool thing for newer players, to be able to say, hey, here is something to help you learn the game. If you have questions, if you want to spend the time to learn certain aspects of the game, here they are. Things like a jungling tutorial, which is something that Wild Rift has that League of Legends doesn't, is great. Did I skip it? Yes. I have played League of Legends for a few years now. I think I know how to jungle, but it's one of those things that I think is a huge deal for players who maybe don't know how to jungle, to have a tutorial that they can load up and say, oh, okay, I kind of sort of get this now. It was a tremendous advantage, and I think it's one of those things that really helps Wild Rift bring in and keep newer players, as opposed to League of Legends, which has some aspects that are just not very new player friendly. Finally, the third lesson that I think League of Legends can learn from Wild Rift is the presentation. I think League of Legends obviously was built a while ago and sort of lacks some of the more modern, shall we say, aspects of gaming. I think that, for example, when you look at a game like Overwatch, you can kind of see how Overwatch allows you to inspect your skins, or to inspect your heroes, or to customize with a golden gun, or, you know, whatever it happens to be. It's significantly better at doing that kind of a thing, as opposed to what League of Legends does. And Wild Rift, fortunately, does a very similar thing. It really allows players to inspect their champions, to see what kind of skins that they have access to allow players to customize the pose that their champion makes while they're loading up in lobby, showing their individual champion models, and really going overboard and saying, look at our presentation, look how cool this game is, look how cool our characters are, and doesn't this make you want to play the game more? And I think it's one of those things that makes the game feel significantly more attractive and engaging to play than League of Legends, with its very static interface and a lot of very beautiful splash arts. Don't get me wrong, but splash arts aren't what you're going to look at in-game, and I can't count the number of times I've shown a friend a splash art for a skin that they've said, oh, wow, that's really cool, and then they look at the model and they say, oh, that's significantly less cool, right? So I think that's one thing that League of Legends can look at doing in the future, is find a way to make this sort of presentation pop. find a way to show off their incredibly detailed models or their impressive poses and animations, and be able to actually let players experience that and be wowed by that, as opposed to right now where Riot are really hoping their splash arts are enough to get you to buy content. So those are the top 3 lessons that I think League of Legends could learn from Wild Rift. If there are any other things that you think Wild Rift does better than League of Legends that League of Legends should start doing, go ahead and let me know that down in the comment section below. I'm sure there's things that I've missed. If you enjoyed the video today, go ahead and leave it a like. And if you really enjoyed the video, consider subscribing. I upload a video every Monday, Friday, and on patch days as well. Once again, thank you guys so very much for watching. I do appreciate it. And I'll talk to you all later.